If Hugh actually came to my office, close that door, or
I'll close it.
okay.
One workout.
All right, excellent. All right, can everybody hear me on Zoom? Can they?
It'll give us a thumbs up.
Good. Okay, well, I'm Patrick Kennel. I'm the director of the Center for Intensive English Studies. And I've been here for, gosh, came here 30 years ago to get my PhD and never left. And so I've been director for about 25 years of the center. And so this is going to be a fun, interesting talk because we haven't done this before. I've interviewed many Fulbright applicants through the years, and some have been great, some need some more help than others. And so this is what we hope to do with this talk is to before you apply, give you some basics of what teaching English as a foreign language entails, and some things that you should think about putting into your application. All right, so on the slide, we teach English as a skill to be used, not as a subject to be studied. That's a very important concept to keep in mind, because we're not teaching mathematics or sciences. We're teaching people how to learn English as a skill and then apply it in real life situations. It's like if you teach someone how to cook, how to ride a bicycle, how to play a piano, things like that. So that mindset, and that speaks to the type of feedback you want to give your students as well, or error correction. You know, if you're teaching them how to play the guitar and they're putting their fingers in the wrong place, you wouldn't hesitate to say, hey, no, place your fingers here, and have them try it. No, place, do it again this way. And that's how you should approach teaching English. Let's see, is this on? I don't know. Oh well. I will just do this. Uh-oh. This is not working. Oh, there we go. I think it's just slow. I can just scroll. All right. So in your Fulbright application, at least according to the website, it says the statement of grant purpose should clearly describe what you will be able to bring to the classroom in the host country, as well as explain any ideas you have on how to reach students coming from a different pedagogical tradition. So those two things here, what am I going to bring to this project, this classroom? And how is this going to be different from how they already teach English, for example, in that country? Now, I've written these PowerPoints. This is how I wouldn't normally not do a PowerPoint, because there's a lot of text on these slides, but I did that on purpose so that anyone watching, anyone taking this can get copies of this PowerPoint and then refer back to this text as you're going through your application. So one, know the level of English proficiency that your students will have. And if you don't know, just guess, or when you're talking about describing your English, your approach to teaching English, say, for example, assuming students are at the B1 level of English, I'm going to approach it this way. Now, what does B1 mean? Okay, so that's the second one, understanding the CEFR scale. This is the Common European Framework of Reference, CEFR, and there's 6 designations: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 being the highest. Now, you should be familiar with that, because that has become the default designation around the world. Someone says, yeah, I speak English. Oh, what level are you? I'm at the B1 level, or the A2, or something like that. So when you're doing your application and filling this out, that would be a good place to start. What level are we talking about? Basic beginners, A1. Highly advanced, C1, C2. make your English teaching useful, practical, interesting, and engaging. It should be useful to the participants. Why are you doing this? How is this going to benefit the citizens of that country? Why, are you doing it just for yourself? Oh, I want to teach English through the works of Shakespeare. Well, that might excite you, but it's not going to be useful really to your students' daily lives. So think about that. Who is your audience, and what are they going to get out of it? Are your students able to apply what they are learning in the classroom to life outside of the classroom? Even children, are they gonna, if you're teaching small children some English, basic English, are they gonna be able to watch some English videos or listen to songs or something like that outside of the classroom? Business, I don't know. There's all sorts of aspects of this, but what I want you to do is think it through. How is this going to be useful for these students? Now, this gets back to how to reach students coming from a different tradition. Understand how English is taught in the country you're going to. Is it a lecture, grammar, translation type approach to teaching English, or is it CLT, communicative language teaching? Communicative language teaching is more hands-on, a lot of engaging activities rather than, okay, do these exercises, do these grammar exercises, hand it in, I'll check it. No, you want to get them to use this in engaging communicative ways. So before you apply, you should be able to talk about the CLT approach in a somewhat intelligent way. Research it. It's just a simple Google search will explain the basics of CLT. Now, what people misunderstand about CLT, they think it's all just speaking and listening and conversation because it's communicative. No, it's all the 4 skills of reading, writing, listening, speaking, but also grammar, accuracy of what and how you're saying it. So grammar and rote learning also plays a part in it. And this gets back to what we were talking about at the very beginning about teaching English as a skill. If you ever played music, yeah, you can play and songs and all that, but if you're really going to be serious about it, you have to know the scales and practice the scales and over and rote. How many times do you play a song before you perform it in front of people? Over and over and over again. That's what I mean by rote learning. And then I put here, how might this approach be received in the country you're going to? My son did our TEFL certificate and went to China and taught in China for a year at a university. And he was approached to using games and interactive activities was a little hard at first because the students, their weakest area was speaking, and they did not want to get engaged. They would rather focus on memorization and then reading and so on, where they didn't have to produce the English. So address this in your application. You might say, if you're going to, whatever kind of country it is, and you might want to just address that. Just say, well, I want to use this approach which might be a little different than the approach that's normally taught or normally used in this country. And that again shows that you're a thoughtful applicant for this position and you're thinking it through critically.
We have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Or you want to take a question at this point?
Sure,
okay. Yeah. So somebody asks, in your opinion, is there a piece of media, journalism or fiction, that depicts the communicative approach accurately? You have a particular thing you would recommend somebody read if they're trying to learn more about?
I would, if you just, there are thousands of academic articles on CLT that you can find. Hell, start with Wikipedia. I mean, that's fine. You don't have to do a deep dive in this. It's really just understanding for the application, understanding what CLT is fine. You don't have to, you can go, books have been written about CLT. So just, yeah, basic overview and start with Wikipedia. They've always got some good links, then to academic articles if you want to go deeper. Basics of EFL teaching. Now, by the way, what's the difference between ESL and EFL? English is a second language, English is a foreign language. Just ESL is taught in the country where the language is already the official language of that country. So we teach ESL in the United States, but we teach EFL in, say, China or other countries. So they teach Spanish as a foreign language here, or French as a foreign language here. So just if you're going to be talking about EFL, understand that distinction. Some basics. Do not try to teach too much. Recycling and repetition is good. So many people, I've read applications where they're way over the top and what they're going, their goals are to teach, this really volumes, or novels or something like that. And no, do they even know English well enough to read at that level? So be careful. It's much rather to be a little more limited in your approach to teaching English, and then recycling and repetition. Again, think about if you know a second language, especially learning that second language as an adult, would it be feasible at, what level are you at that second language? And always think about that. And that kind of will temper you a little bit about your expectations about how much they can do in English. Very important is the second bullet, build a common vocabulary list. This is a really simple thing that is overlooked a lot by even veteran teachers. In a class, you want to, at the end of the class or the end of the course, you want to give your students something tangible that they can walk away with. Like, okay, this is what I've learned. Vocabulary is a great way to do that. And also, I didn't put this on the slide. I should have. Always remember there are two types of vocabulary. There's receptive vocabulary and productive vocabulary. So when you're learning a second language, well, even in English, we know a lot more. We can read and understand a lot of vocabulary, but when we go to use the vocabulary, our productive vocabulary is much more limited than our receptive vocabulary. And so make a conscious effort of teaching them vocabulary, but then trying to get them to move it from receptive to productive vocabulary for their writing and their speaking. But if you use as you're generating vocabulary, you might want to have one student. Okay, for this day, you record the vocabulary that we generate today, and then do that with another student the next day, and so on, because you're going to be too busy teaching and to remember this vocabulary. But it's amazing how many words you generate in just a week, and then in 3 weeks or whatever, and then once a week, you can go back and give vocabulary quizzes. And there you've got something tangible. Give regular feedback. And we're going to talk about feedback. What does that mean? But do it regularly. I mean, every class period. Call on specific students. Don't let one student dominate the class. There's always that one student who knows all the answers and the teacher asks a general question, that student jumps in with the answer, oh, good. And the other students are happy to let him or her answer that question. But that's not what they're there for. You have to call on the individual students by name. Do not create multiple choice tests when evaluating your students. Multiple choice is pretty much an American thing, I think. It's, you know, I teach people from Europe. My wife is from Denmark. She had never encountered a multiple choice test until she moved here to the United States and had to take the nursing exam. And it's just, and my European students, they just laugh. They say, oh, that's a simple, we're having a simple test. Oh, multiple choice, yeah. It's short answer, try to get them to produce short answer and get up and talk. That's again, it's harder. It's harder on the teacher, but it's more productive. Use the retrieval method rather than recast when correcting. So what does that mean? So when a student, if you've already taught simple past, for example, tense to a student, and they come in the next day and they said, teacher, I go to the supermarket yesterday. And normally somebody might say, oh, you went to the supermarket yesterday? Yes, I went to the supermarket yesterday. Did they really learn anything from that little exchange? Or the retrieval method is, teacher, I go to the supermarket yesterday. I'm sorry, what? I go to the supermarket. I'm sorry, I don't understand you. So what is that student going to do? Is going to analyze what they just said. I went to the supermarket yesterday. That's much more powerful, much more effective than the recast. The recast is easy. The teacher thinks they've done a job by not putting the student on the spot or whatever. No, that's not why the students are there. They're there to learn. And so retrieval method is much more effective. What are your student learning outcomes, your SLOs for this course? What do you want these students at the end of the course? What do you want them to be able to do or to have learned by the end of this course? You've got to be clear on that. What are the tangible takeaways that from this course? That if you put that in your application, that is very strong, much more powerful, and will send the signal like, oh, okay, this person is serious. They know what they're talking about, and they've thought this through. Okay?
Someone had a quick question.
Yeah.
If they have a TESOL certificate, will it still be recognized, or is it equivalent to the TEFL in countries where the language is not English?
Yeah, TESOL or TEFL, absolutely recognized. Yes. Yeah. Now, is that if that's from FSU? Definitely great. If it's some online course, that's kind of suspect, unless it's like one of the top ones. But a lot of the online ones where you take a TESOL certificate or TEFL certificate in 2 weekends, no, that's not going to be valued or recognized, really. So, the basics again of EFL teaching: first meeting, positive. You want to create a positive learning environment. How do you do that? You know, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll talk about all of these here: the needs analysis, creating learning activities, typical lesson plan, giving feedback, and talking about the culture. Okay, first meeting. Now, Americans, especially if you don't know a second language, you haven't, you're just going to go in and speak. You're going to speak quickly. You're going to use idioms. You're just you got to slow down, speak slowly and clearly, enunciate your words. But remember, these students are very intelligent. But then they're not deaf and dumb, you know. So don't speak to them like, you know, speak to them respectfully, but slowly and carefully until you can gauge where their level is. And you can just be open with it. Am I speaking too slowly? Am I speaking too quickly? You know, give me some feedback here. Smile transcends all sorts of languages and cultures. You know, be patient, be patient. Don't use a lot of idioms and advanced vocabulary. Be careful with the words that you're using. It's just amazing how many idioms we use in our daily life that we're not even aware of. Get to know your students. What's their name? How do you pronounce it? That's so important. That's their identity. And you have to really, if I were to say one thing about creating a culture, a good culture in the classroom, is know their names and use their names, and vice versa. And that's your identity. And you know, and you again be honest. The languages with tonal names, it's going to be really hard for Americans to pronounce. But just say, I know I'm not getting it right, but I'm going to try. And they, you know, and keep on trying, and ask them to correct you. You know, they might say it's not important, but yes, it is. After a while, it becomes important. If they know you're trying, that goes a long way. So get to know them. Are they married? Do they have children? What are the children's names? What do they do? Why do they want or need to learn English? You know, get to know them on a personal level. Share your life with them as well, as much as you're comfortable with. You want to create this safe environment, because they're when you are trying to use a second language, you feel stupid, and you're taking risks, and you're putting yourself out there, and that's fine. But you're not going to get the students to engage unless they feel respected and safe. And this is how you do this. You know, depending on their level, start off with the basics. You know, my name is, your name is, her name is, the pronouns, and go around the room. I am a teacher, whatever. You are, and get them to engage in that. Very basic sentence structures from the beginning. Again, this all depends on their level. Obviously, this is a very basic level right here. True beginner, very low level of English. You know, what are they going to be able to do? Well, can they write the alphabet? I mean, are you going to be teaching students who have come from a completely different alphabet? You know, Korean, Chinese, Thai, whatever, or is it Western alphabet? Can they read the alphabet? Even, you know, it's funny with Spanish speakers and the vowels. You know, it gets all mixed up. What's an E? What's an A? What's an I? So you can have the students identify letters of the alphabet. Everyday objects. This is a cup. This is a book. That's basic. Now, intermediate, advanced, you want to get a feel for their level in, just because they speak well doesn't mean they can read well or write well or even understand. So people get fooled by that. Oh, their English is great. Yeah, maybe speaking, but what are their other skills like? So again, grammar, you don't want to really test their grammar knowledge as much as their grammar use. That's what you're after. Can they use grammar accurately in writing and speaking? And you can have them talk in the class, but you can also, with the cell phone, they can record themselves, and then they can send you the sound file. And what's really effective, we've done this a lot, is have them record something a couple minutes and then have them transcribe it. And what that shows is that, so what happens is you're speaking in a second language and everybody understands you, and you think, yeah, okay, I'm good, you know, they understand my English is great. No, they just haven't corrected you. But they understand what you're trying to say. You're great at communication, but by then having them transcribe it, then they're able to see for themselves, oh, every sentence has an error in it. I'm understandable, but I need to work on my accuracy. So that's a very effective technique to use. You know, reading, give them a reading passage, ask them the basic questions, who, what, where, when, how, why. Then if you want to extend it a little bit, talk about the implications or the, you know, the deeper meanings of this, as well as vocabulary. But just go after the 4 skills here. Yeah. So I put down here, like speaking, always keep this in mind, the dichotomy of accuracy versus fluency. You want them to be fluent, to be able to speak so that their spoken English flows. But if they're making mistakes in every sentence, you know, they need to work on their accuracy. And that's difficult for some people. They're so, if they're a communicator and they're engaging, they're extrovert, they just want to communicate. And you got to almost like pull them back, say, no, you have to get this accuracy in if you're going to really advance. So that's a fight. And again, I would say from middle school on up, you can talk very openly with them about this sort of thing. Then we need to, your fluency is great, you're a great communicator, but your accuracy. And by, again, having them transcribe it, that certainly helps them to see that. Okay. So learning activities, make the activities and lessons as specific and appropriate to your student as possible. Again, you want to get, the students have to understand that this is useful for me. Why should I listen to you? Why should I do this activity if it's not really going to do anything for me? I need it. I need to use it. So make sure you explain why you're doing these activities and how it will help them. You can, again, talk to your students. What scares them, frustrates them about using English in their daily life. And you can use that information to, you know, create activities, role plays, etc. That, oh yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. This is what scares me. On the telephone, you know, or when I'm speaking to someone that I can't see, and do role plays like that. Make the activities meaningful and useful. Job application, sitting for a job interview. I talked about vocabulary development, keep a vocabulary notebook, a vocabulary list. Quiz, every not necessarily every meeting, but every week, at least once a week, have a vocabulary quiz and recycle the vocabulary. So as you're building the vocabulary, the first week you have the quiz, second week you have new vocabulary, but take about 2 or 3 words from the first week and recycle that. And then just keep doing that over and over. So the students know that just because we're finished with this first week doesn't mean we're not going back to it. And that's the same if you're teaching grammar or something like that. The simple present tense, you know, used for facts and routines. I wake up every morning, I take a shower, I eat breakfast, that's simple present tense. If you teach that the first week, and then you move on to present continuous the second week, and then simple past, in the second or third week, you come into the class and say, hey, Carlos, what do you do every morning? What's your routine? and get them to think back, okay, yeah, that's simple present tense. And then again, do that with present continuous tense. If you're just recycle everything throughout the course. So it keeps it fresh in their mind. I said, use AI, explore AI. How do we incorporate AI? It's here. How can you incorporate it? You know, FSU has a great website, ai.fsu.edu, with all sorts of tools for students and faculty. You know, I completely discourage our students from using it to produce something, but they can use AI to help generate some ideas or structure. So I'm going to give you a typical lesson that you know, you should think about, and maybe you can take some of these things and incorporate it into your application, or when you're describing how you're going to teach English. Greet the students by name. Ask the students what they can remember from the last meeting. What did they learn? Recycle that. Okay, can you guys remember what we did last week? Someone, and this is another key thing. Don't tell them, okay, remember last week we did this and this and this. Don't do that. Approach it by, hey, can somebody tell me what we did last week? And again, get them to retrieve that. Review the previous lesson quickly, ask the students about any issues that might have come up during the week related to English or culture. Hey, did you guys hear any more vocabulary or new vocabulary, television shows, songs, what have you? Conduct the activity as, now this is what happens, again, even with veteran teachers. And, you know, okay, we're going to do a communicative language activity. We're going to get into groups, and I want you to do this and this, and they're producing a lot of language, and it's wonderful. Everybody's engaged, all right. And you're walking around facilitating, and then at the end, everybody's like, oh, that was a wonderful lesson, great, all right, good, and everybody leaves. No, you missed the most crucial part, and that is the feedback. So you get them into groups, you get them into this activity. Your job then is to walk around with pencil and paper, listen to what they're saying. Don't make eye contact, but listen to what they're producing and write down errors. Write down how they're using the language. And, you know, try to get one error for at least each person as they're speaking. And it could be anything. They're playing a game, they're discussing political hot topics, whatever, but your focus is on the language that they're using. And then at the end of that activity, all right, was that good, good, good. Now, let's look at, this is what I heard. And then you write down on the board the error, the sentence. Okay, class, let's talk about this. You don't point out who said it or anything like that, but everybody works together to correct that sentence. That's, again, it takes the students back to their main purpose for being here and doing these activities, which is to develop their language, not to discuss, you know, this situation or that situation. You know, that's the vehicle to developing their language. So you write down the errors and then you review them. Write down the vocabulary and then give feedback. And then again, be honest with them. Hey, what did you all think about the lesson? Was this useful? Why or why not? You know, would you like to do more of this type of exercise or not? That again builds that trust between you and the students, that respect, and then it nips things in the bud, because if they're not happy with this activity, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. Let's go on to something else. Yeah, and then give them, you know, homework or activities outside of the class. grammar knowledge. When I started teaching overseas in Turkey years, I was a backpacker, right? And I fell into this job. And I knew what a noun and a verb was, preposition, adjective, kind of. That was it. I mean, it was terrible. But I learned and I developed. And that's what you should get familiar with some of this. I've got a document that will be available to you, just the basics, explanations of these tenses, present continuous tense, when do we use that, simple past, and so on. So you should have a little bit of knowledge of that, especially the tenses. Now, feedback, I said, I keep on going back to feedback. You're teaching a skill, the way you help people in any kind of skill is you give them feedback. Could be called error correction, whatever. First, you ask your students, is it okay if I correct you? Well, yeah, I hope you will. I mean, but it's amazing. Some of my peers say, oh, you don't want to correct them because you'll stifle them, you'll make them feel embarrassed, they won't engage then. No, if you do it the right way, they'll want to engage more because that's why you're here. And how did I get to this point? Real quick story. So, like I said, my wife is from Denmark. We had known each other for several years. We got married. We were 6 months into the marriage, sitting at breakfast, and she said something, and I corrected her. And she looked at me, and she said, I've been saying it this way since I've known you. How come you haven't corrected me? And I said, well, I think it's cute the way you say it. And she slammed her hand on the table and she says, I don't want to be cute, I want to be right. And I said, oh my gosh, yes, of course, of course. So you want to correct your students. You're doing them a favor, and you're not, by not correcting them, why are you even there? So correct them. We talk about beautiful mistakes. If you're making mistakes, that shows you're trying, that shows you're stretching, you're moving out of your comfort zone. If you're not making mistakes, if you're so careful, you're not developing your language. So mistakes are good. And I bring this up because in some cultures, mistakes are seen as bad, and people are so hesitant to speak unless they know what they're going to say is correct. And so it's really difficult to get them to develop themselves. But beautiful mistakes. We're not interested in perfection, but rather in effort. Recast, we've talked about. Retrieval is the best approach. Recycle vocabulary, feedback at every meeting. Keep any jargon to a minimum. This drives me crazy in these textbooks. Oh, English grammar, teaching EFL. Let's talk about, well, here's the affirmative sentence. What the hell is an affirmative sentence? It's a positive sentence. Use that. There's a positive sentence, a negative sentence, and an interrogatory. No, just use question. It's a question. But if you go by the textbook, these teachers think that I'm a teacher, I'm a grammar teacher, I'm using an interrogatory. Your students aren't going to know what that means. Well, it sounds cool. No, just use positive, negative, question. The student should understand his or her weak areas in English as they're getting feedback. Again, what do you need to work on? What are my weak areas? Well, I keep on using present tense when I should be using past tense. I need to focus on that. That's good. And this last one, Americans are so optimistic and overly enthusiastic, and the student gives a presentation and you're like, oh man, that was great, good job, it was wonderful. No, it wasn't. Don't be honest with the student. Okay, be honest with the student. Be ready, temper your marks, be positive, but hey, that was a good effort. You need to work on this and this and this. what happens when you're overly enthusiastic or overly positive, the students get a false sense of how good they are. And then again, they won't develop. Well, you just told me I was great, and now I get a C on my paper, and it's just mixed up. So that's a very strong cultural thing that Americans have. That you have to be careful about depending on which country you go to. It's how overly enthusiastic you get. And there's all sorts of cultural books that have been written on there. By the way, if you're interested in that culture and the differences, there's a great book called The Culture Map. It's written by a woman who serves as consultants to multinational companies all over the world. And she talks about how there's a lot of misunderstanding between teams that are international because of this, how negative feedback is received and given. So just FYI. Culture. Show your respect to the students by being truly interested in their language. I mean, obviously, if you're doing Fulbright, you should already be truly interested in the culture of the country you're going to. Study that culture, though. Is it a low context, high context? How do they communicate? How do they give praise or not give praise? That sort of thing. What's religion, politics, country, sports and music, football, yeah. And then I put down here, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is so true. So show them that you care about their country, you care about their and respect their beliefs and their way of life. Don't, and I know you know this if you're doing Fulbright, don't walk in there with this American, yeah, we're the best country in the world and da 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 da. That's that will not get you very far. And finally, last one, in summary, have a clear, so when you're writing your application, clear reasons for your English teaching and how it benefits your students. Have a clear beginning, middle, end of the journey you're taking your students on. If you lay that out there, that will make your application very strong. Talk about the effective filter, creating a classroom that is safe, engaging, fun. Creating this environment where they want to be engaged. Talk about your approach to error correction and providing feedback, the retrieval method rather than the recast. Talk about vocabulary development. I put the 2-question approach, and that is something I learned when I was living. I lived 6 years in Denmark, and I've been learning Danish for about a year and a half. 2 years, thought I was pretty good. I could communicate. And then I was on a train, and this was before cell phones, before internet, everything. And I was bored, I had nothing to do, and I start to test myself. And what is this called in Danish? What is that called? What is she doing? What is he doing? And I realized very quickly, oh my God, basic vocabulary. I didn't know basic things. And so I started to ask myself 2 questions. What is this called in Danish? What is she doing in Danish? What am I doing in Danish? Just asking yourself those 2 questions. Wow, this is really difficult. And so if you know a second language, I challenge you for the next week to ask yourself those 2 questions while you're cooking. Just stop and say, what am I doing in Spanish or French? Or what is this called? You have a whisk. What is this called in whatever language? And I think you'll be very surprised at how much you don't know. And so anyways, it's a cool way to get them to develop their vocabulary. It's stuff that they interact with daily. Have clear, succinct SLOs, what will they be able to do by the end of the course? If you spell that out in your application, that is very powerful. And how will you evaluate your students? Is it, I'm going to give both formative assessments and summative assessments. Understand what that is. Formative is during the course so that it helps them grow throughout the course. Summative is at the end of the course where it's kind of a wrap up. Okay, what did you learn here? And again, this stuff, Google it, and learn what it means. But if you throw in formative and summative, that will, oh, okay, that's very nice. And then finally touch on how the students after the course, well, how will they be able to continue to develop their English after your class? And possibly the impact it might have on their life in their country or their career or so on. And with that, I think that's it. Have fun. All right.
And questions, if you have them, please.
You can also just take yourself off mute if you want to say it.
Everybody's shy. Did they leave?
William asks, are there any resources offered by CIES that you think would be beneficial?
Oh, we will have a TEFL certificate course throughout the fall, especially the first part of the fall. And then I think that will be our last TEFL course, unfortunately. But if come by CIES, talk to me. I'm absolutely, I've been doing this for 40 years. I love this. So come by and talk to me and I'll show you some resources that might help.
And you're encouraged, at least you're free to put in your application that you plan to take that course in the fall, even though you won't have taken it yet by the time of application, right?
Exactly.
So say,
Yeah.
And we would certainly encourage you to do that if you're serious about teaching English.
That's right. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Stop the share.
What is the TEFL class called, and is it credit hours or is it an outside course?
It's non-credit. And if you just go to cies.fsu.edu, you'll look at programs at the very top, and it will be the TEFL certificate. It's called TEFL, TEFL certificate, and applications should be open for fall 1. Just started summer 2, but fall 1 should be open. Unfortunately, there will not be a fall 2 TEFL course, but yeah, and if I can also point you to other TEFL courses out there that you might be able to take.
For those of you still here, if you don't mind answering the quick poll that we've launched. Oh, okay.
I'll take off.
All right, well, if you all have follow-up questions, please feel free to be in touch with us. We will send you the slides from today, as well as the document that was referred to, and we'll make this recording available in the coming week or so.
It'll be on the Canvas site embedded in workshops and videos.
I don't read. Thank you.
Thank you.